Week 9 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few players I look to buy and trade for this week. The first player, Emeka Egbuka, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Emeka Egbuka, he came out of the gate on fire to start his rookie career. Now, the last 3 weeks here where he's been dealing with a hamstring injury, the numbers have definitely not been there for Egbuka. Week 6 versus the Niners, 2 catches, 24 yards. Week 7 at Detroit, 4 catches in that game, 58 yards. And Week 8 in New Orleans, 3 catches, 35 yards on 9 targets. So the targets are there. He's the number one option in the passing game. Mike Evans, we know, broke the collarbone. He's going to be out for multiple weeks and possibly to the end of the season. And Chris Godwin, even when he returns to the lineup, I don't think he's going to be 100% and the number one option. So with Egbuka 3 games in a row struggling, not 100% with the hamstring injury and going on bye, I think he's a perfect player to buy low this week. The next player, Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos. So Sutton, he's been inconsistent this season. And in another great matchup versus the Cowboys, he had a mediocre game in Week 8 with Sutton with 4 catches, 67 yards. So the last few weeks, Sutton, numbers have still been okay. He's Courtland Sutton, but nothing where he's been putting up numbers where he should be in greater matchups. So Week 6 at the Jets, he put in a stinker in that one, a catch, 17 yards. Week 7 versus the Giants, 6 catches, 87 yards, 2-point conversion, 10 targets. And Week 8 versus the Cowboys, 4 catches, 67 yards. So Courtland Sutton, he's having a decent season, but I just feel like there's a lot left on the table at times for a guy who's a number one wide receiver, and especially over the last couple weeks where the Broncos have scored over 75 points in 2 ball games. So with that factor in coming up, tougher matchup at Houston and Vegas in Week 10, a good matchup. I think Courtland Sutton could start putting up those bigger numbers. Like I said, the last 2 out of 3 weeks, we really haven't seen much out of him, and he's a buy low player this week. Next player is Stefon Diggs of the New England Patriots. So Diggs, beginning of the season, he didn't do much. His numbers the last few weeks really haven't been there for Stefon Diggs, and I know Drake May, he's a quarterback that spreads that football out. Obviously, is Drake May, where he gets it to tons of different wide receivers. And Diggs, like I said, besides that big game at Buffalo, it's been mediocre games since then. Week 6 in New Orleans, 3 catches, 28 yards. Week 7 in Tennessee, 7 catches, 69 yards, 7 targets. In Week 8 versus the Browns, a touchdown saved his day, 3 catches, 14 yards, found the end zone. So Stefon Diggs, he's only a year removed from the torn ACL, but he has played every game this season. And like I said, I think him and Drake May just got to get a little bit more rapport. And also as well, when these games get bigger, we know Stefon Diggs throughout his career has been a guy who could step up and make big plays in big ball games. So with all those factors, and like I said, only a year removed from the ACL, he's definitely not 100%, in my opinion, is Diggs. He's still a player I would buy this week. The next player, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy's going to come back into the lineup now, where Carson Wentz the last couple weeks, he's been taking a beating and turning the football over. So Justin Jefferson the last couple weeks, still double-digit fantasy games, but his numbers have definitely dropped off for Justin Jefferson. Week 5 overseas game versus Cleveland, 7 catches, 123 yards, 11 targets. Week 6 the bye. Week 7 versus the Eagles, 5 catches, 79 yards. And Week 8 at the Chargers, 7 catches, 74 yards, 11 targets. Obviously, his numbers haven't been elite numbers this season for Justin Jefferson, but he's still obviously a solid wide receiver. Every game this season, he does have double-digit fantasy points, but we just haven't seen that patent 30, 35-point fantasy day for Justin Jefferson. So right now, he's struggling to get yards after catch, where he's not in great positions at times with this Minnesota Viking team. And J.J. McCarthy coming back at quarterback for this Viking team, where fantasy owners might think, obviously, that it's not going to be helpful for Justin Jefferson. He's a buy low player this week. The next player, his teammate Jordan Mason of the Minnesota Vikings. Aaron Jones, I know he's back in the lineup for this Minnesota Viking team, but I still think Mason's the running back you want over there in Minnesota. In Week 8, it was just a ball game, obviously, where the game got out of hand pretty early, that Los Angeles went up and down the field early and often in that one. So Jordan Mason, even early in the season, when Aaron Jones was in the lineup, he out-touched him a couple times. And then from Week 3 on, he was pretty solid for the most part. Week 5 at Cleveland, 13 carries, 52 yards, a touchdown, 3 catches, 4 yards, a fumble loss. Week 7 versus Philly, 15 carries, 57 yards, a touchdown. And Week 8 at the Chargers, like I said, that game, they got blown out. It's done early often. They abandoned the run 4 carries, 3 yards, a catch, 3 yards. Aaron Jones, like I said, he returned. Played an okay game was Aaron Jones, but the running game couldn't get going. And now with McCarthy coming back in at quarterback, I think they're going to try to rely on the run a little bit more, where he's still probably not 100%. I think McCarthy has to get the playbook down a little as well. So with those factors and Jordan Mason, the goal line back, that role I think set in for him. He's definitely a player to buy low this week. The next player, Nick Chubb of the Houston Texans. I know the ceiling isn't high for Nick Chubb, but he's still a player that's getting a lot of touches in this backfield for this Houston Texan team. And sometimes volume could lead, obviously, into fantasy points. In the last few weeks, non-existent games, but like I said, the touches have been there. Week 5 at Baltimore, 11 carries, 61 yards, a touchdown. Week 7 at Seattle, 5 carries, 15 yards, a catch, -5 yards. And Week 8 versus the Niners, he had a good workload, 17 carries, 56 yards, 2 catches in that one, and 13 yards. So Week 9, a tougher matchup versus Denver. Good stout defense, obviously. But like I said, I think Nick Chubb, he's a running back that could go out there and help fantasy owners. And he's going to get those carries where Woody Marks, yeah, he's getting carries as well. But he's a third down back more times as well as Woody Marks. So Nick Chubb, definitely a play to go out there and buy this week. And obviously you don't have to give up much, in my opinion, to get him on your roster. And the final player, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, I liked him coming into the season, and the last couple weeks his numbers definitely falling off, but now going on by and possibly getting Bucky Irvin and Chris Godwin back in the lineup in Week 10 could be big. Buka a little more healthier as well, where he's been gotten out of hamstring injury over the last 3 weeks. So the last few games for Baker, Week 6 versus the Niners, 256 pass yards, 2 TDs, 14 rush yards. Week 7 at the Lions, 228 passing, a touchdown and interception. In Week 8 at the Saints, 152 passing and a fumble loss. So like I said, they get a little bit of a reset. Is this Tampa Bay Buck team where guys are going to come back into the lineup? Chris Godwin, Bucky Irvin most likely. And also they came off a blowout victory at the Saints, which is a good thing. So with all those factors, I think Baker and this team get a little bit healthier. And for the stretch run now, he could help fantasy owners in this Buck team. So that's a few players I look to buy and trade for Week 9 of the fantasy football season.